إن شاء الله تعالى.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyil amin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa tabi'ina lahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. Honorable online guests, my professors, lecturers, professionals, dear brothers and sisters, welcome back to our weekly English lecture on Islamic finance and the sustainable development goals, a Maqasidi appraisal. And today we are very much honored to have Associate Professor Dr. Syed Boueraoua from ISRA, Malaysia, to conduct the lecture. And we are really thankful to Prof for being with us today in this session. In fact, you know that Islamic Economics Association of the Faculty of Sharia and Islamic Studies, Kuwait University, is trying to conduct lectures, forums, seminars, and workshops, which usually cover a wide range of areas in Islamic banking, Islamic microfinance, insurance, capital market, equity market. And also Islamic Economics Association is conducting lectures and talks on some specific topics like sustainable development goals, Maqasidi Sharia, sukuk, retail, corporate banking products, practices, and other contemporary issues, and wealth management, fintech, debt management, and so on. A part of that today's lecture on Islamic finance and the sustainable development goals, Maqasidi appraisal. This is to promote Sharia compliant finance models globally, and Islamic Economic Association is continuing in conducting programs and lectures both in Arabic and English languages. And we are receiving thousands of participants from around the world from more than 30, 35, and 40 countries, especially in programs in Arabic language. So we are very much honored to have Associate Professor Dr. Syed Boueraoua today as our guest speaker. Dr. Syed is currently a senior researcher and director of Research Affairs Department at the International Sharia Research Academy for Islamic Finance, which is very well known as ISRA in Malaysia. And he is also a lecturer at the Global University of Islamic Finance, INSIF, in Malaysia. Dr. Syed is the editor-in-chief of ISRA International Journal of Islamic Finance and independent board member of Afin Islamic Bank, a Sharia member of the Central Bank of Oman, chairman of Afin Islamic Sharia Committee, and chairman of Trust Bank Amana Suriname Sharia Committee, a Sharia member of the Sun Trust Bank Nigeria. Dr. Syed is also chairman of Sharia Committee of MNRB Takaful and Ritakaful. He is also Sharia member of ISRA Consultancy Institute. Dr. Syed has published many books and chapters in books and several articles in referred journals. He has also presented several papers at international conferences, including the International Fiqh Academy of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. Dr. Syed has conducted several trainings and workshops in Islamic banking and finance in Malaysia and abroad. This is our honor to have today Associate Professor Dr. Syed Boueraoua. I am my pleasure to welcome Prof to deliver and to conduct this lecture. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Muhyiddin, and thank you very much for the invitation. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I am honored and it's my pleasure to receive the invitation from the Islamic Association or Economics Association from the University of Kuwait. And I have visited Kuwait a few times. I like the country, I like the people, and also the push for improving or bringing the knowledge to its highest level. So that's why I did not hesitate to consider being part of these activities and these events. Jazakumullah khair for the invitation. And I have some problems. Please just I seek your assistance to share the slides from your sides. And okay, I will present it from my side. Okay, that will be easier for me. Okay, so
is it visible?
Yeah, visible. It's excellent. It's from it's visible. Yes. When I was approached, so we were discussing the issues to be discussed. In fact, I'm going to present, but I will be very happy to have the participants, people to ask questions, and even to contribute to improve the presentation, inshallah ta'ala. So I realized that one of the hottest issue that needs to be discussed is the SDG, which is Sustainable Development Goals, vis-a-vis the Maqasid Sharia, which means discussing the Sustainable Development Goals from a Maqasidi perspective. First of all, to appreciate the Maqasid and also to identify or critically analyze the position of sustainable development goals within the Maqasid Sharia, whether they are in conflict, whether they are in conversion, which one to be integrated to the other one, and also how to address this global concern of sustainable development goals or sustainability, especially in the Islamic finance investment fraternity. So this one is a big issue, and even many countries or many financial institutions around the globe, they are requested to report to the regulator their contribution, their activities, their involvement in sustainable development of the society with regards to the governance and especially the environment, especially with this development of environment. Next, please. So this is the outline of my presentation. I will not go through it in details because you will get it in the presentation, in the today's presentation. So I will discuss the sustainable development goals and finance industry, the global evolution of sustainable development, and also the motivation for sustainable, and the SDG with the Maqasid Sharia and other activities. So next, please. So when we discuss the sustainability and the maqasid, we come to the point that says that the key factor for a successful business is to preserve and grow capital in a social responsible way. The previous perception, previous understanding is that financial institutions, and that's the concept of laissez-faire. The financial institutions, they are there to maximize the profit, to make the shareholders richer, or to increase the wealth or the profit of the shareholders. But with the negative impact of this notion of laissez-faire, of notion of maximizing the profit, there was a call for the consideration of the well-being of the society. So that's why they realized, which was clearly established in the fundamentals of Sharia, especially Maqasid Sharia, the act consequences, they realized that no, the business should be sustainable. You cannot make tons of profits at the expense of the society, to impoverish or to make people miserable in the short or medium or long-term perspective. So this is the first point that was highlighted in the recent debate discussion from pure Western perspective. And this is what I'm going to come to discuss. It's Western, they realize that now, regardless whether it's how to say, sincere, 100% sincere, 80% sincere intention, or a way to make some corrections of their huge mistakes that has put the society at stake. So the second point is, in my introduction, is that the successful Islamic finance business is business that adds value to the company. And when you speak about the company stakeholders, we speak about shareholders, workers, and clients. We should not just focus on shareholders at the expense of the workers, staff, or employees, or at the expense of the client who are seeking investments or seeking financing. I remember in 2005, 6, 7, we speak about the importance of Maqasid consideration in in presenting, in promoting Islamic finance, in engineering the product, in designing, in structuring and designing product. And I remember some of the practitioners, without generalizing, they were saying, brother, this is abstract philosophical advocacy that doesn't fit generally with real economy and finance, because it's not measurable, and it's not. So we said to them, no, we have tried in one of the research that it's easy to measure the impact of non-Maqasidi adherence in Islamic finance structuring. So, but they said no. But now they came to the same position where sustainability, value-based, ethical consideration, which are still subjective, they came to say that no, it can be measurable, and we can even assess, we can even screen the companies, the investment based on those considerations, which they agree that yes, they are to some extent subjective, but they are measurable. So they came back to the same point of Sharia, of Maqasid Sharia, which is measurable. And now, fortunately, now there are huge, I will not say attempts, huge efforts, works to screen the investments based on Maqasid Sharia. And we realized that it's measurable, and it came before even the notion and concept of sustainability or ESG or SDG or VBI, value-based intermediation. Now, the question to be discussed in this one is just, let me just make sure that I will not go beyond time. The question to be considered here is that the SDG of Maqasid, are they in clash? Are they contravening each other, or they are in convergence and we can harmonize? And also, if convergence is there, which one to adopt or promote? Now, there is a call to say that, yes, we agree that there is not much difference between Maqasid and sustainability, or ESG, or value-based intermediation, or responsible financing, or socially responsible financing. However, for I think the language that the practitioners, the industry people, they understand is that people better to use sustainable development because of the global consideration, and no need to use Maqasid because they may not appreciate the concept of Maqasid. This is what I'm going to discuss. The next slide, please. Now, I will not go through in details, but I will just highlight the global development of sustainability. This is for the information, and also for those who are doing research in the area of sustainability, they can refer back to those efforts, attempts from the conventional perspective. Can you just, yes, okay. Okay, now, if you see the global evolution of sustainable development, you can see that it has started in 1972. Of course, started in a humble way, in a small manner, the establishment of the United Nations Environment Program. 91, Sweden became the first nation to enact carbon tax. 172 government participants in the Rio Earth Summit. They discussed the issue of environment and climate change, and there is 97. The Kyoto Protocol was adopted by the United States and 121 other nations. 1999, which is very important, the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Of course, it was not as sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, Prof. Now it's okay.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So also we have this 2011 United Nations, 2013 the International Integrated Reporting Council. We have in 2015 where the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So the one that we are going to discuss in slight detail is the one that was issued by the United Nations in 2015. The 2015 same year, the Paris Climate Agreement replaced the Kyoto Protocol and set a global goal for limiting global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius. Next, please. So in 2016, the Task Force on Climate released related financial disclosure. 2019, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. And in 2020, the EU taxonomy was published, which is the classification system that establishes a list of environmental sustainable economy. And in 2021, the Asian taxonomy is intended as the reference point for sustainable projects and activities. 2021, the IFRS Foundation formed the International Sustainable Standards Board. And those are all the developments. And if you can see in 2021, especially 2020, 2021, beginning of 2022, the big discussions, the trainings, all with regards to sustainability and how to risk that will affect the sustainable development and the assessment, the reporting, the index, the measurement, how to measure the contribution of Islamic financial institutions with regards to the sustainable development goals. So this is just in general the progress, the development of the sustainability. Next, please. The motivation for sustainability. So when you see the motivation, of course, there are some people that are saying that this is coming a bit late because they have already affected hugely the Western approach of investment, of financing. It has affected a hugely big spectrum of population, of people. You know, the World Bank, they have in their report, in 2021 report, if I'm not mistaken, they said that 1.7 billion adult. First of all, they don't have access to financing. They don't have access. Why? Because of the point number one. 1% of the world rich have acquired 80% of the new wealth, while the position of the world's poorest 50% has not improved. This is what they call it excluding growth or exclusive financing. So I will give financing not based on the quality of the project, but based on the credit worthiness. So which means the whole wealth is concentrated with those people, and they will take the loans or financing at the expense of those who got brilliant projects, brilliant idea, and they can add real value to the society. And one of the shortcomings, I will say mistakes, is a mistake of the regulator, where they did not push either by imposing regulation or by supporting the small and medium industry in terms of acquiring financing, by sponsoring them, by reducing some requirement, by giving some guarantees to those small and medium finance recipients or seekers who got brilliant projects. And I remember reading a few years ago that the UK government, they realized that there were brilliant students graduating from UK, and after graduation, they were not given the chance to transfer their knowledge of maybe PhD masters into practical project and business. They were not extended visa, and they found that some of them they have moved to the Silicon Valley. They became a huge project innovator, and they have generated billions of money for those rich men. They realized that it's not a question just of creditworthiness. That's why they decided, for those brilliant students with big ideas, they decided to extend their visa for another 1 or 2 years. And those selected people, they approach them, they give them extended visa for another 1 or 2 years. And they told them, whatever projects, innovative project you have, you come to us and we'll be your guarantor to the banks to finance you. So this is an innovative idea from a government, not to miss the opportunity or release those people to go back without benefiting from innovation. Now, if you see of workers in the G7 was less than 3% from 2003 to 2011, 2017, whereas it has increased for the shareholders by 33%. If you speak about CEOs, it's crazy. It has increased by 940%, whereas the workers, the employees, just 12%. 80% of the profit were taken by shareholders in the average, whereas at the expense of the workers who made this profit for them. And also the climate change, the climate temperature has raised 2%, and 85% of the financial sector is based on speculation, not real economy. So this has motivated the idea of financial inclusion, sustainable development, sustainable investment, and all those ideas. Next. Now, even there was a call for sustainable impactful financing and investment. They say, instead of speaking of GDP, we have to consider GPI, and the GPI take everything that GDP use into account, but adds other numbers that represent the cost of negative impact associated with economic activities, such as the cost of crime, the cost of ozone depletion, and the cost of resources depletion, among others, the cost even of the society. So this is now the new approach that was pushed by some non-government organization or non-profit organization, or even some regulator. They realize that it has created big gaps between segments of society. Next. Now, those are the call for sustainable, impactful financing and investment. And if you go through the literature, you will find those terminologies, and you find scholarly writings promoting a new approach of investment, not the investment of laissez-faire, not the investment of maximizing the profit for investors, regardless of the environment, regardless of the society, regardless of the impact on the economic growth. So we come to see responsible investment, impact investment, socially responsible investment, sustainable development, shared prosperity. It was initiated first in World Bank, and even Malaysia in their Vision 2030, they have this vision, shared prosperity vision 1930. And we have United Nations ESG of course, difference between ESG and SDG. ESG is dedicated for Islamic finance, for finance and investment, whereas the SDG, it is bigger in terms of spectrum because it will include other than finance or investment. We have the Global Alliance for Banking and Value issued in 2009, and Malaysia, they have benefits from this one, and they have issued in 2017, the Central Bank of Malaysia, they have issued value-based intermediation. And this is mainly dedicated, it's dedicated to both Islamic and conventional banking, but they have well drafted or crafted this one for Islamic banking. And now though it had started in 2017, but in last year and this year, there was a huge development in terms of applying those value-based intermediation. And if you can, I advise you to go through the report of IBM, Association of Islamic Banking in Malaysia in 2021. And they have also, we are finalizing, ISRA is working with the Association of Islamic Banking for the report of 2021. There was one report 2020, and we are, commissioned to finalize for them the report of 2021, and it's going to be launched in around May or June, which is now it's in the final stage. We have also positive screening now. The Securities Commission of Malaysia, which is good that you go through these discussions. Securities Commission, they have issued what is called a positive screening for for companies. And alhamdulillah, we have worked with the Ideal Rating to prepare the Maqasidi part with regards to how to measure the positive screening to those companies, because negative screening is tobacco, gambling, liquor, all those things, but positive screening is that, yes, you are investing in Sharia compliant activities. However, you have an issue of labor force law, and you have an issue of justice. You have issue of environment. You have issue of balancing between social welfare and profit maximization. And as I mentioned, we have recently the Takaful Association. They have issued the value-based intermediation framework, and you can even find it in their website. And we have had some latest couple of days meeting with them to we are planning to propose to the Takaful companies scorecard for Takaful companies in terms of measurement of their activities to check whether they are in line with the principle of Sharia and whether they are in line with Maqasid Sharia. Next. Now, SDG and Maqasid Sharia. I know that maybe most of you, they know what is Maqasid Sharia, but I believe that the core issue with Maqasid Sharia, that it has not been brought from the fundamental theoretical sphere to an applied, easy to assess, measure practicality. And this is where I can say that it has yet to be completed and finalized. And this is where the scholars and the experts this cannot be done by the Sharia scholar. It has to be done in combination between Sharia scholars, practitioners, legal people, regulator, supervisor, because when you speak about Maqasid, when you speak about Maqasid in a practical way, you need to have database. And it's easy when you get the support of the regulator, central banks, when you get the support of the Islamic Banks Association, it's not that difficult to measure Maqasid, the practical of the bank based on Maqasid Sharia. We have conducted the research in 2010 to do some benchmark measurement or assessment, because this is important to assess whether it's Maqasid Sharia. You have to establish parameters, you have to establish a scorecard to assess them. And we have done also another few research. We have even started collaborating with IRTI in 2012-13. And now we have worked with Ideal Rating, and we are working with other institutions to come up with a practical guide or scorecard or screening with regards to Maqasid. So Maqasid Sharia entails a holistic approach that aims to elevate humanity to the highest rank by making them upright, spreading virtue among them, establishing public interest, fighting the promotion of harm, and ensuring balanced relationship between the self, the community, and the universe in which people live. So the uppermost objective of Sharia rests within the concept of compassion, guidance, love of God, and love of creation that seek to establish justice and eliminate prejudice. And the last point is, among the fundamental and universal objective of the Sharia is the preservation of stable and sufficient consumption needs through the preservation, development, and circulation of wealth. Next. Now, those are the beautiful definition of Sharia, Maqasid Sharia. And when you compare them with sustainable development, you will realize that those definitions, they are in reality more advanced. You know, Al-Ghazali, he passed away in 550 Hijri, which means almost 1,000 years ago. And his definition, the very objective of Sharia is to promote the well-being of the people, which lies in safeguarding their faith, their lives, their intellect. And the definition of Allal al-Fasi is, who passed away, I think, in 1973, is even more advanced than the definition of SDG that I'm going to present. You see, Allal al-Fasi, he's a Moroccan scholar. He wrote his book of Maqasid, but his definition of Maqasid is, in my view, it's very modern and it's amazing. He said that the overall objective of the Sharia is to make the earth flourish with civilization, to maintain the system of collective livelihood upon it, and to sustain its goodness by making good those who were placed upon it to carry out God's will, so that they will accomplish the duty assigned to them of establishing justice and integrity, properly developing and using the intellect, improving the world, discovering and extracting its resources. And this is I put it in bold, this is the sustainability, which means financial inclusion, and administrating all that for the benefit of everyone, not for the benefit of small segment of wealthy or people or wealthy nation at the expense of other nations. Next. Here, I will not go into details. We know all the 5 necessities of Sharia, but what is important is the interrelationship between these 5 necessities. And here I know that I am dealing with some experts who know better Sharia, Maqasid Sharia than me. But Shatibi, he realized that you cannot speak about deen or wealth, mal, without considering the interrelationship between those. He said that Shatibi, this is translated text of Shatibi in his book Al-Maqasid. He said, if there were no religion, the expectation of reward disappears. If there is no reward, why do I need to take no reward? I will just pass away, die, and everything will end. And he said, if there were no mukallaf, morally responsible individual, there will be no one to live by the religion, because religion cannot be lived with without mukallaf. And if there were no intellect, religious responsibility would be annulled. And if there were no reproduction by the normal state of affairs, humanity would not continue. And if there were no wealth and property, life would not go on. This is Shatibi in his book, volume 2, page 14. Now we can see the interaction. And I will come to discuss the relationship between Maqasid, and you see that why sometimes the discussion, which one to bring forward, which one to promote, to market, to speak, to how to say, to present in those how to say, platforms, conferences, and even in the regulations and guidelines. So this is very important. Next. So ESG and Maqasid approaches in establishing the preservation of the 5 necessities, because 5 necessities, sometimes we speak about 5 necessities, but the approach is scattered. Deen, without interrelating this one with wealth, and sometimes you give priority to wealth for something which is related to deen, just to preserve the deen at the end, because at the end is for the sake of preserving deen. So first of all is establishing the Islamic worldview. You have to understand what they call it helicopter view. You have to understand Sharia from a macro perspective, not from micro scattered scattered perspective. So first of all, establish the Islamic worldview, and this is I see it like a software. You will understand Sharia in a balanced way. Second, linking the protection of the preservation of the 5 necessities to the principle of stewardship and reform. استخلاف and إصلاح. إن أريد إلا الإصلاح ما استطعت وما توفيقي إلا بالله. الاستخلاف وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. Third, linking the preservation of the 5 necessities to the Sharia objectives of making civilization flourish and achieving balance and integration. So this is also one of the, guiding principle to apply Maqasid. Fourth, establishing commands and legislations that ensure achieving of the goal of the 5 necessities preservation. Now you come next please. Now there were discussion of Maqasidic paradigm, and this recently there was a huge discussion, and even people of Sharia who I remember the few years, 10 years, 15 years ago, they will tell you that we should not be, as Sharia, especially Sharia committee members of Islamic banks, they will tell you, for me, I will consider Sharia compliance. I will not enter into the niyat and into the act consequences, because for me, if the contract, the product, the structure, the model is presented to me in terms of Islamic banking, for me, my core concern as a Sharia scholar in the Islamic bank or in the cover companies, Sharia compliance consideration, which is satisfying financial operation, fulfilling legal documentation, focus on form of contract. But now, subhanallah, those promoting Maqasid, they were a bit challenged. They got resistance from this first part. But with the, subhanallah, sometimes the influence of external party may remind and revive the call for Maqasid. Now, with the sustainable development, with the value-based intermediation. What does mean value-based? What's the point to maximize profit, and you end up 50% of your client, of your customers, over debted, defaulted. So what's the point? Defaulted, which means there is no just and balance, financing of those people. Because now, if you can see in terms of practical, most of the banks, they are focusing on personal financing. And personal financing, especially with the concept of tawarruq, that you don't have guarantees, you don't have things, and you will get personal financing, and it has tawarruq has reached in some banks 90%, 95% of the whole financing portfolio of the banks. At the end, many customers, when you got free money, you think that it's free money, but it's a debt that it will be incurred on you. Free money you will spend beyond, as mentioned the president of the US last time, because of the financial crisis 2009. He said that this financial crisis was caused because people, they were spending beyond their means. That's why the central banks, they came to say that you cannot finance a person above 50% or 60% of his salary. And this is now coming to the act consequences. Yes, Sharia contract is there, but because of this financing, it has put a huge segment of the client, of the people, into hardship, difficulties, into default. And this will have, implication on his family, on his how to say, livelihood and other things. So now they came with, instead of Sharia compliant requirement, compliance in form and substance, which means we have to consider the environment, we have to consider the governance, we have to consider the society, and that's why there was a call for socially responsible financing. And there is the ethical operation. Yes, it may be from pure Sharia perspective, form perspective, there is no issue, but ethically, I think I cannot, if someone is ignorant, I cannot exploit his ignorance to put him into hardship. So that's the point. Responsible, they call it now in modern term, responsible financing and socially responsible activities. Next. Now we come to the SDG and Maqasid Sharia. I hope that, wow, time is running very fast. Now I will not go, we know all the 17 goals of SDG. And we know Maqasid Sharia. I have already defined the SDG. Now you go down. Next, please. Now, well, we have done some research and we found that in general, SDG does not clash with Maqasid Sharia. They are in convergence. So there is a convergence between Maqasid Sharia, and we put them into real perspective. If you speak about the goals, no poverty, no hunger, zero hunger, and good health and well-being, they are all within the preservation of life. حفظ النفس. Quality education is preservation of intellect. You know, lack of education, lack of access to knowledge will affect the intellect and will affect the rational thinking and will affect the outcome of your decisions. So that's why education, the first verse revealed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. If you speak about clean water, affordable and clean energy, responsible consumption, you see, and production, climate action, those are all, we call them wasa'il. والوسائل, as we know in the qaida, الوسائل لها أحكام المقاصد. That means they have the rulings of objectives of the maqasid. If the maqsad is, of course, there is some debate in some details, but in general principle, the means has حكم المقاصد. يعني الوسائل إلى مقاصد محرمة هي محرمة. So those are all وسائل. Clean water is wasila to what? To preserve wealth, life, intellect, and the religion. You see, and lineage, which is necessary. So that's the interaction between the five maqasid. But if you speak about direct maqsid is the preservation of one is life, because clean water will affect the life of the insan, the human. Next. Because of the time constraint, I will just go into, you hear decent work and economic growth and industry, innovation and infrastructure. Those are the goals of United Nations. Sustainable cities and communities. This is all means to preservation of wealth. So this is the wealth. This is amwal, usul, properties that needs to be preserved of the wealth of people, not to be spent, spoiled without means. Peace, justice, and strong institutions is preservation of justice, fundamental of Islamic belief. And this is very important, because the core verse that Shafi'i said that إذا نزلت أغنت إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Reduce inequality, conform with the Islamic values of adala, insaf. Of course, no doubt that you cannot eliminate inequality. ربنا قال ورفع بعضكم فوق بعض درجات ليتخذ بعضكم بعضا سخريا ورحمة ربك خير مما يجمعون. But this inequality, it's not عقوبة, a punishment from Allah. It's because of exploiting, using your means of ijtihad, and because sometimes of external factor, because a colonized country may not be as prosperous as the country which is a comfortable situation. But Islam aims to reduce inequality and strive to have a balanced, just relationship between others. Gender equality, I think that's the only goal that has created sensitivity and issue. But in our perspective, in our study, we said that it's acceptable. We have to agree that we should النساء شقائق الرجال, and in general taklif they are the same because they have intellect, they have capability, capacity, mental capacity. So they are, and for those, for example, when it comes, especially in some countries, they are saying gender equality means that mirath, the heritage should be the same. No, we have done in one of the research that mirath is not based on it was not divided based on individual consideration. It's based on family social consideration. That's why in some instances, some of them, they said near to 30 times the woman is inheriting similar or more than the man. So this is the consideration. And partnership to achieve the goals, this is conform with the Islamic value of ta'awun, wa ta'awanu 'ala al-birri wat-taqwa wa la ta'awanu 'ala al-ithmi wal-'udwan. Next, I will not go into details. I will just highlight that when it comes, even from micro perspective, from detailed evidences in terms of SDG, we can find that we have beautiful, amazing hadith and verses promoting the air consideration, prohibiting air emission, and environment consideration, and also water resources. لا ضرر ولا ضرار. الضرر يزال. Even IUFI, they have how to say dedicated huge resolution in air emission, in environment management, and also in terms of وكلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا إنه لا يحب المسرفين. Those are all clear indication that we don't have an issue at all. We have never have an issue with preserving environment, climate support and well-being. And even the Prophet ﷺ has prohibited killing animals for the sake of killing, for enjoyment. It has to have a purpose, it has to have a meaning. Next. Habitat protection, you can see, and also waste of water. طهور, you know, the beautiful hadith. الطهور شطر الإيمان. يعني نظافة والماء. Energy management. You go next. I will not just focus on this one. I think you can. Here even governance. We have plenty of verses of Quran, hadith that establish the fundamental of governance. But let me speak about the governance. The fundamental principle of Sharia is that it prefers act transitive as act that will go beyond the individual. We call it al-fi'l al-muta'addi, acts that go beyond oneself to benefit the others. So this is very important. And we remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that says, قالوا يا رسول الله أي خير يعني أي الناس خير يعني سألوه who is the best among people. He said خيركم وأحبكم إلى الله أنفعكم للناس. The best amongst you and the most loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most beneficial to others. So this is the governance and benefiting that fulfillment of engagement, taking full responsibility in those areas. So from the macro and micro perspective, I think there is no issue. Next. Now this one, if the here in fact I sent this slide, but I have added some points. But let me just present it in short because there is no time now. The time is very limited. Now, if convergence, which one to drive the Islamic finance industry? I did highlight this one in the first part, and I said that now we are dealing with the influence of conventional finance, conventional investment, conventional rules and regulations. There was a call from some people. They were saying that one of them, they say this maqasid it's better to promote, to have the SDG driving the industry instead of maqasid driving the industry. But in practicality, it's very important. This is sorry, let me just, because I have here a very important point from Omar Shapra in his book, I think the vision of نظرية Islam in the development based on Maqasid Sharia. He has highlighted a very important point. The motivation, the inner religious motivation for financial institutions, for individuals, for regulator, is very important to drive the industry, because we are upholding the logo of Islamic finance, and we have to honor this logo, and we have to believe that the Maqasid Sharia should be the big umbrella that drives the whole industry. And it's easy to say that even the SDG, the ESG, the value-based, they fall all within Maqasid Sharia with some reservation of some small points, but in general, we don't have any issue. So he said, Omar Shapra has made very nice statement. He said that human beings are the end as well as the means of development. The reform needs to be given the utmost importance, which means if you want to reform, you want to reform the human. You put rules, regulations, you put everything, but if the human is not reformed, it will play around the regulation, and he will win in his heel on the regulation. He said that the religious worldview, which carries the greatest potential of ensuring the reform of the human stuff in a way that would help ensure the fulfillment of all the spiritual as well as material needs of the human personality specified above, which means the faith is very important. The motivation by faith, by religion, when you have the motivation of maqasid, and I have already highlighted the statement of Ash-Shatibi, if you believe that there is hisab yawm al-qiyamah, there is a reward and there is a punishment, and there is Allah, God, who will يسمع ويرى يعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور, and you know that you are accountable before Allah, and Allah is all seeing what you are doing. So the religious one is very important. That's why, in my view, the maqasid should drive the sustainability. And when we speak, we have to praise maqasid because it has an inner religious aqidah motivation to adhere to the rules and the regulation. He said that Western scholars conducted after extensive study of history, concluded after extensive study of history, that moral uplift and social solidarity are not possible without the moral sanction that religion provides. And he said that the lessons of history, that they ascertain that there is no significant example in history before our time of the society successfully maintaining moral life without the end of the aid, which means the support, without the aid of religion. And he's all right. That's why, for me, we should not just be, how to say, ashamed, or should not show that we are modern, we are adhering. No, I think maqasid now, even the word of maqasid is put into the dictionary. When you put maqasid, even the Western, the English-speaking people, they know that this is maqasid. There are some words which are even put in the English dictionary, ijara, mudaraba. Now you don't need to even explain it in different ways. So this is the first point. The second point is that the issue of industry friendly. No, I think we should impose our terms and conditions. This does not mean that we are going to eliminate, we are going to discard the sustainable development goals or sustainability, responsible financing, but it has to have this engine of Sharia principle, is this engine motivation of Maqasid Sharia. And you know, now we need to have a huge contribution, effort from the scholars to convert this Maqasid Sharia into the measurable, assessed, maqasid, how to say, parameters or scorecards. So this is the second part. Is industry friendly. Alhamdulillah, in Malaysia here we don't have an issue with those terminologies, and we are very happy to promote them in writings, in discussions, and even in the Central Bank of Malaysia. They are all highlighting the importance of adhering, adopting, promoting, promulgating Maqasid Sharia. The third point is SDG and Maqasid, or the issue of measurability. I have highlighted in the initial discussion, and I will stop here. The rest, I think, I will just go through them in general. The issue of measurability. Now, with the concept of value-based intermediation, socially responsible value ethics, which they can even measure it from the risk, pure conventional risk perspective, Maqasid is even easier to measure it based on, for example, balance between harms and benefits, موازنة بين المصالح والمفاسد, act consequences, مراعاة مآلات الأفعال. All those can be put into first parameters, scorecard, assess measurable assessment of the practicality, and we start gathering the examples, for example, of personal financing, also of the added value of blended financing, combination of business profitable financing with philanthropy, contribution from donors. This has changed the huge amount of work, and in our last report you can see that we have done some. This is important to defend, to support the Maqasid, to show that they are even more comprehensive, more detailed, more measurable than even the other one, is to have what is called applied research, applied studies, with the data that we can bring, measurable data to compare risk sharing, or to compare the transactions of, for example, based on risk sharing, or transaction based on consideration of society as a whole, or a social human being. We can strongly defend this one. Next. Here I think the core fundamentals of sustainable development of Islamic finance. I think if you want to promote Maqasid Sharia in a more modern and in convergence with sustainable development, I think we should establish a vision and a mission and strategic initiatives and application. It has the Maqasid and the sustainability. They have all to be incorporated in those vision. You know, the vision is guiding you to consider Maqasid and sustainability in your product, in your processes, in your relationship with your employees and with your customers. Build Maqasidi sustainable governance mechanism. Governance is very important. Set Maqasidi sustainable goals and reinforce them through executive compensation. Empower sustainable leaders at the senior levels to drive Maqasid and ESG strategy. If the leaders by the regulator or by the boards of directors, they were given the mandate to consider both and to report both, we will empower, we will enforce the Maqasid Sharia. Embed Maqasid Sharia and ESG commitment into the operational model and structure. Acquire and develop talent for Maqasidi driven and sustainable future, because you know the frontliners, promoters of Maqasid, who are ignorant of Maqasid, ignorant of SDG, they cannot deliver. They cannot. We have in the famous قاعدة in Arabic, كل إناء بما فيه ينضح. You cannot deliver something that you don't acquire, you don't know, you are not expert in. Championing inclusive talent management and reward program, create sustainable culture, communicate the plan and progress to all stakeholders. Next. This is also strategic initiatives in innovative, sustainable and value-based solutions, nurturing innovative Islamic finance initiatives, especially the startup, the microfinance, those who are in need of financing, those who do not have the creditworthiness, research development and capacity building, maintain Islamic finance industry penetration momentum, accelerating towards, especially now, digital excellence. Last one, I think this one I will just this is what is called blended financing, aligning between the underlying principle of Islamic finance and sustainable development, the waqf, the zakat, that they can play a huge role in supporting the financial industry and combining between what is profit making and socially responsible financing. This is in short my presentation. And I open the floor for any questions or any added. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof, for this wonderful presentation. And now we can open the floor for question and answer. If anybody has any question or any point to add, please welcome. Either you may write your question in question and answer section, or you may raise your hand. We can switch on microphone for you. Dr. Ilyas Abu Al-Hajja. Welcome, Dr. Ilyas. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Muhiddin, and thank you, Prof. Saeed, for your great presentation. Actually, just I want to be sure about this. Do you think, Dr. Professor Saeed, that to have an Islamic finance, a unique Islamic finance, okay, without conventional finance, it is from Maqasidi Sharia? So this is my direct question. The second thing, just I want to highlight, what is the difference between the sustainable investment and sustainable development? I think there is something shared between both of them, or what? Thank you very much. And sorry, we need the material, if you don't mind, to have it on the chat screen.
We
Thank you.
Dropped materials in the chat group.
Yeah, it's already in the chat.
We are putting again, yeah.
Okay, I think thank you very much, Dr. Ilyas Abu Al-Hajja, to have a unique Islamic finance which will serve the purpose. Of course, this is the how to say, the ideal situation when you have your Islamic finance, because the issue of some Islamic financial institutions is the constraint of the conventional system. Because when you speak about risk weightage, when you speak about credit worthiness at the expense, this is profit maximization. When they will assess you, we are proposing, for example, why Islamic financial institutions, they will assess at the end of the year that marginal profit, and they don't care whether out of their data, if they have data, don't care whether the default is reaching 3 to 4. No, I think they should have a combination. We may accept some reduce in the profit if there is an added value to the society. If we have projects, for example, in favor of the environment. Yes, I think the best option is to have an pure Islamic finance. But I believe that before this one, if we have an equal footage, which means equal footing between conventional Islamic, and there is a prevailing of Islamic consideration in terms of system regulation, I don't see a big issue of having, besides the Islamic finance, conventional financing. But for me, the big issue is when the controlling in terms of system, in terms of rules and regulations, it's in favor of conventional at the expense of Islamic. I will give you an example. Risk weightage for musharaka and mudaraba in some countries is In some jurisdiction is 300, 400%. Malaysia, because of some risk mitigation, they have reduced it to 150 to 200%. If you have risk weightage of musharaka to 400%, and you have pure loan, conventional loan, 100%, or sometimes, which means for each 4 loans extended from conventional perspective, you cannot extend more than 1 musharaka. And when it comes to shareholders, they will tell you, sorry, I don't want to close my shop, brother. Yeah, you just go to the murabaha, you create indebtedness, and you have a collateral, you have charge over this one. So that's a point. Difference between investment.
Sustainable investment and sustainable development.
Yeah, sustainable investment, you know, it's to my understanding is similar to the ESG and SDG. ESG is just how to say, considering the area of investment and financing. However, SDG is going bigger than this one. When you say sustainable investment, is just within the fraternity of finance, of financing, investment. But when you speak about sustainable development, it goes beyond when you have infrastructures, when you have development of education. That's what I see the difference. This sustainable development is wider in terms of spectrum compared to sustainable investment.
And we can say that the sustainable investment, it leads to the sustainable development.
Of course.
Yes. And regarding to the first answer, thank you very much, and you clarify everything. Regarding to the Malaysia, it is, I think, a unique country regarding to the using the modes of financing and mudaraba and musharaka. But I think most of the Islamic finance around the global, the murabaha, and you know maybe more than me, that murabaha financing, it's more than 90% comparing with the other contracts regarding to the Islamic finance. We hope that the Islamic banking and the Islamic finance going through the sustainable and also for the social benefits. And this is what we call the corporate social responsibility. This is the corporate social responsibility. It is come through the Islamic banking also, and the Islamic banking should have this social responsibility. Thank you very much, Dr. Said. Thank you.
Just to add a point for the participant, I think our big problem that we need to go beyond it is that we have confined Islamic finance in banking. So that's the big issue. I think we should go beyond the banking to investment, to joint venture, to private equity, which first of all, the profit is reflecting the real business. Private equity, they sometimes they give 25%, 30%, the real investment. So that's why I believe that for banks, they have some constraint because they are intermediary between the depositors and the seekers of financing. That's why I understand their constraint. But I believe that scholars and investors and those knowledgeable businessmen, they should open more room in terms of different avenues of exploiting Islamic finance beyond banking.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this wonderful elaboration. And thank you, Dr. Ilyas. And now we welcome Mr. Abdurrahman Ahmed. Brother Abdurrahman, please, if you have any question. Brother Abdurrahman Ahmed. Or Muhammadan Ibn. Brother Abdurrahman Ahmed, are you here? Okay, Mr. Musa Harun. Musa Harun, please welcome, Brother Musa.
I think they have okay, they unmute.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
Yeah, Doctor, my regard to going to my doctor. So my question is, what is the difference between muzabana and musharaka?
I think this is beyond
Can you, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
I cannot hear you. I think this is I think I will answer.
I would like
Mr. Musa, I think
like to know.
your voice is not clear, and please ask any question, any relevant question with the topic. Yeah.
I think better.
Okay,
better
my second question is
to focus on the topic. We cannot go beyond the topic. Yeah, this is another lecture. Maybe they will invite me from Muzaban and Musharak.
Inshallah, no problem.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome.
My second question is, what muzabana means?
Mr. Abdurrahman, are you with us?
I'm ready.
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Please.
Okay.
Dr. Said, I ask a question, and what difference in conventional finance and Islamic finance? Second question, can a financial relationship be avoided conventional finance and Islamic finance?
Can you repeat the second question?
And can a financial relationship be avoided financial and conventional finance and Islamic finance?
Okay, so the first one, I think this is one of the fundamental. I think the difference is clear. Is one based on loan with interest, whatever the contract, because whatever what they used to say, whatever the acrobatic move they will do, but it will end up by extending loan with interest. They call it letter of guarantee, letter of credit, call it all those names, name it, whatever it is. But at the end, whatever it is, it will end by extending loan with or guarantee with interest, and the relationship will be just extending either cash money or extending guarantee to pay with interest. So this is the first one. The second one we can avoid if you have. First of all, there is no harm to have relationship between Islamic banks and conventional banks. You know, if you go to IOF standards, there is what they call syndicate financing. Syndicate financing, if you finance project which is Sharia compliant and you don't have money and you have conventional banks who wants to contribute in financing, it's Sharia compliant, as long as the transaction is Sharia compliant and the project also is Sharia compliant. So which means it's not necessary to avoid relationship between Islamic and conventional bank. But if you have a pure, complete Islamic bank, I think banking, that will be better. So I think I advise you to read the IOF standard with regards to syndicate financing, where they allow to have in syndicated financing 3 to 5 financial institutions financing Sharia compliant projects. They say there is no harm to have a conventional bank participating, and they prefer to have Islamic banks who are how to say monitoring or who are taking lead in administrating or in operating. But for them, as long as the project is Sharia compliant, there is no harm to have conventional bank working or participating in the what is called syndicate financing. And in practice, conventional bank, they can invest based on murabaha with Islamic banks. They can give money for Islamic banks to do murabaha for them, but the opposite cannot happen because they don't have mudaraba. Conventional bank, they don't have mudaraba to do for Islamic banks.
Thank you very much, Prof. Alhamdulillah, we completed and concluded our lecture for this week, English lecture, and we would like to thank our Prof Dr. Said Boueraoua, who is our today's guest speaker. On behalf of Islamic Economics Association, Kuwait University, we would like to thank you very much, Prof, for your time, for your effort.
My pleasure.
And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept your effort and your khidmah. May Allah reward you, Prof. And we would like to thank all the participants, online guests from around the world for joining us today, and see you soon again, inshallah, in our next session. And our thanks go to our management board of Islamic Economics Association, especially Dr. Ala Al-Ubaid, Director General of this Islamic Economics Association. And we'll see you soon, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much.
Jazakumullah khair, Ustaz. Barakallahu feekum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.